In today's video, I'm going to show you how you can make your first $1,000 flipping phones. If you guys don't know me, my name is Boston. I'm the owner of PhoneFlippers.com. I also run a $10,000 plus per month phone flipping business, make over 10 grand profit each and every month from flipping phones. And one of the biggest things is just getting over that first hurdle of making your first $1,000. I have a lot of people who join my group who just want to start, just want to get their feet wet, get off the ground. And this video is going to be specifically for that avatar because we all start somewhere. We all start at zero. And I want to make sure that the people who are interested in this business, but don't necessarily have the skills to scale up from a certain point can get to that point later and they can focus on all that later, but they have a good launch pad to go from literally nothing to something. And that's what I'm going to do in this video. Now, first things first, what we'll cover in this video, one, we're going to talk about how the business works. We'll talk about where to find phones to flip, what to do, and when to do it. So we're going to go over the how, the where, the what, and the when in sequential order. And we'll go ahead and start with how the business works. Do not skip any points in this video. They're all going to layer off of each other. And if you're a complete beginner with no idea of how this business works, or you've never actually done it, you're not going to want to skip any sections because it's going to end up coming back to bite you. It's going to take a little bit of an attention span here, but it's going to be necessary and well worth your time if you do commit to watching this video in its full length. Now, first things first, first point, and the reason this is the first point is because it is the most important. It is the premise of the entire business. Buy phones for less than what they are worth. And that statement seems so simple and rather obvious. Unfortunately, most people understand that, and then they don't know what to do beyond that. And so at a base level, just understand this is the same thing if you were flipping cars, flipping houses. You just buy for less than what they're worth. Because if you buy for what they are worth, you make no money. And if you buy for more than what they're worth, you're taking an L. You're losing money. So I know that seems obvious, but it needs to be said because it's the key cornerstone, the foundation, you could call it, of the entire business. If you don't understand that, you're not going to have any chance of making it. Now, the next thing that usually comes on top of that. So understanding that, most people fundamentally, they hear phone flipping. They may not sit there and analyze it and come to that statement, but fundamentally people in the back of their mind at least will know that's the premise of the business. Now, what that leads to is a question. So when it comes to phones specifically, well, what's the phone worth? How am I supposed to get it for less if I don't know what it's worth? And so people ask the question, what is it worth? I get DMs almost every day of people asking me, hey, what's this 12 Pro Max worth? What's this 12 Pro worth? How much should I buy this iPhone 13 for? And this just drives me insane at a certain point. It's also part of the reason I'm making this video, but that's the most common question I get. Newbies, beginners, they ask me, hey, what's this go for? And I completely understand it. When I was a beginner, I was asking the same questions to different people. I had a cousin who was flipping phones. And so I was texting him all the time, asking him that. And he graciously responded to me with kind of what he was doing in his local market. And prices, of course, ended up being about the same for me. But listen, that's just the wrong question to ask. Fundamentally, it's the wrong question to ask. That's why I put an X there. You should not be asking this question because it doesn't solve the issue. It just leads to this question being asked repeatedly. Well, what if I'm not there to answer your question? And now I actually point people towards asking a different question because it's going to solve this once and for all. That way you're not constantly relying on someone else to tell you what things go for. Ideally, the question you want to be asking is, how do I figure out what this is worth? If the whole premise of the business is to buy the phone for less than what it's worth, then you need to figure out what it's worth so that you can even buy it for less. But instead of just asking someone else, what is this worth? Well, how can I figure out what this is worth? And no, the answer is not texting me on the school group or hitting me up on Facebook or whatever. That's not the answer. Or, leaving a comment. People do that as well. That is not the answer. But it is the right question. So if you can go from what is it worth to how do I figure out what this is worth? Well, then you put yourself in a position to have a system, a routine, a way, you can go every time and then get that question answered without relying on someone else. And ideally just not asking that question altogether. Eventually you kind of commit prices to memory, but there's just a simple formula for figuring out what phones are worth. So we're going to go over how to do that. And there's multiple ways to do this. Again, this video is for beginners going from $0 to $1,000. So if that's you, here is how you should be figuring out what a device is worth. I'm actually going to demo this live for you. So the easiest way Again, there's multiple ways, but the easiest way is to just go to eBay, ebay.com. If you don't have an account, set one up. I don't even think you need an account to look up prices. So we'll use an iPhone 12 Pro Max in this example. As you can see, I have some previous searches here of things I was looking at buying. I do this, so I'm practicing what I preach here. iPhone 12 Pro Max. Let's say you're maybe looking at buying a phone to flip. People, instead of texting me saying, hey, how much should I buy this iPhone 12 Pro Max for? How about you just go to eBay and we'll look it up. So this is what I point people to when they ask me this, because the questions will just never end. And even more so than it being a headache for me, it's just not a good system for you to have to rely on me to answer every time. And I also don't know, because I don't know where you're selling. There's different places to sell, and I can't accurately always give you all the details if I don't know all the context of the phone, because there's different variations of phones. It just puts me in a terrible spot. I can't be the guy, nor can anyone else. That's why you need to use a platform like eBay to see what things are going for. Now, iPhone 12 Pro Max. Some people would look this up and stop here and think, oh, okay, this one's selling for $350, 433 plus sold, 345 rather, but you know what I'm saying. Say, oh, okay, these are selling for $345, so I'll go make some offers for $300, make $45. Sounds great. Couldn't be farther from the truth. First of all, without getting too technical here, this is sold by some big reselling and refurbishing company. You can see it's eBay refurbished certified. So first of all, these listings are going to be boosted, I'm sure. Well, they're sponsored. You can see that. So that's one thing. Second, they've sold over 433. So this is some bulk refurbisher selling a bunch of things. Beyond that, you just don't want to use the main page to price things, because this is just what's available for sale. These could be listed for $900. It doesn't mean they're going to sell for $900. And yes, I understand this one, 433 plus sold. There's some social proof here. Regardless, this isn't a good way to price things. So understand that. You don't want to just look it up and then say, oh, okay, it's in this range. No, come down to the side, and there's all these filters here. What you want to do at the bottom where it says show only is select sold items. You can do this on the eBay mobile app as well. It works the exact same. And what you'll start to see here is some 12 Pro Max. Now, of course, with 12 Pro Max, there's some variation. The biggest ones being carrier lock or unlock, some sort of damage, and then storage. So to keep things simple, we'll go with the base model, which is 128 gigabyte. We'll say it's unlocked, carrier unlocked, and we'll say there's no damage. It's just like typical used phone. Down the road, there's some nuance with amount of scratches on the screen, battery health, interchange parts. For the purpose of this, that's not going to be relevant because of how I'm going to tell you how to sell these devices. What you want to make sure is there's like no cracks or anything, obviously, which, you know what, I'll get to that later because you can buy cracked devices. The point is, we're assuming this device has no damage. So you bought it, no damage, just like a normal used condition phone, 12 Pro Max unlocked. So what you see here, here's one that sold for $315 plus $7 shipping. So we'll just say like $320-ish. This one had a best offer, expected best offer, $325, but it is $256. This one's $128, broken back glass. So that one doesn't really. Now this one sold for $290, but it's a read description. So of course there's going to be some sort of issue there. This one's a standard 12 Pro Max unlocked, $295 plus the $10, so around $305 on that one. This one was $350 now, but it was by a bigger seller. The ones you want to really look at are the ones that are smaller sellers, because that's kind of what you would fall into the category of. For these big sellers, these big refurbishers who sell a bunch of stuff, they have the benefit of having a ton of feedback, being more reputable, being a top rated plus seller on eBay. Just try and filter through a few. So what I would do here is try and find a few around the same. These are parts only, parts only. This one's a 14 Pro Max, parts only. Here's a 12 Pro Max pre-owned, $366, shipped from Canada. So I would kind of just filter out that one. Here's one for $285, so $295 with the shipping. It's also a $256. So after I look through these, and what I could even do, here's one $300, 128 gigabyte, pretty soon. So generally speaking, I see a lot of these going for around $300 on eBay. I would see this and think, okay, I could probably sell this for $300 on Facebook Marketplace. And I would, look at a few, try and find the lowest one, and then take that one. Don't take the highest one. Just take the lowest one. That's what you have, good condition, 128 gigabyte, and go with that. This one would be right around what you would expect. So $300 I'd feel pretty comfortable thinking I could get $300 for this. Now, if you sold this on eBay, there would be a 10 to 15% fee depending on how you're selling. For all purposes of this, that's irrelevant, but we're just using this currently to get a price. Okay, about $300. Maybe if I'm being super cautious, I'll say 280. So we'll say, lower end 280. I would say just to play it super safe, especially if you're just starting off. So we'll just say the 12 Pro Max 128 gigabyte. And again, when you're starting off, especially, and you don't understand what things are going for too well, just play it super safe, err on the side of caution. And we'll just say I can sell an iPhone 12 Pro Max 128 gigabyte with no damage and is carrier unlocked for $280. And you would feel very confident with that based on those other listings. So that's what we're going to do there. We're going to assume 280 in this example, and we'll get back to it later, but that's just one way you can appraise. And for a total beginner, that's the way you should appraise, in my opinion. It's the best way. Use that method because now you know what things go for. You don't have to message me. You don't have to message your cousin who's flipping phones like I did. You don't have to try and find what other people are listing for on Marketplace maybe. That's not a very good method, in my opinion. You want to filter by items that have sold, and you want to compare a few of them and then err on the side of caution, take the lowest one. As you get more advanced, of course, you can always push your prices up a little bit, play around. But as a total beginner, you want to be super risk adverse because most people when starting off have very little starting capital. And this business does require capital because you have to go buy an item before you can resell it. So you have to have at least a little bit to start. And in this instance, I would say with that example, 280 would be a spot where you would feel really comfortable about it. So we'll just say 280 for that. Now, we'll get back to all that, but that's just a good way to start. Again, this is more just like basic premise than super specific. It's not like how to flip an iPhone 12 Pro Max. That just goes for any phone. That's how I would do it. So that's the formula. And it's the biggest issue I see new flippers making. They just go out there and buy a phone thinking it's just like free money. And it's not the case because you'll end up overpaying and you'll just lose money. It's like a reverse flip, trying to throw your money away. So don't do that. Again, we'll just summarize this very briefly. When you're starting off, you should use eBay to find the exact device. So take into account the gigabyte, meaning storage, the model. So iPhone 12 Pro Max versus like an iPhone 12 Pro. You want to make sure you know all the different kind of iPhones. Something like ChatGPT would be very helpful if you're not sure, and etc. So like carrier lock versus unlock. And then of course you want to make sure when you're starting off, don't be buying damaged phones. Just buy something that works because it gets a little more tricky and nuanced when there's damage present. So that's the easiest way to start. Sort by sold listings. As I showed you, don't use the unsold because that's not going to give you an accurate price. You want to see what's actually sold. That's going to be the way to know how much things are going for. And then find the lowest one. That's what it'll sell for. Don't go off the highest one. Again, just err on the side of caution. You can always come back and tweak this a little bit, but that's that. So, continuing with how this business works, you now know the value, which is like the biggest thing. You know how to get value. We know at the very start, we have to buy for less than we sell, obviously with any flipping business. And so we have to know how much it'll sell for before we ever buy it. You don't want to play these guessing games. You want to know what it will sell for before you buy it. You should know exactly how much you will make before you ever even buy the phone because it should be done. You should get that little dopamine hit when you buy it. It's a done deal. I just made, say I bought that 12 Pro Max for $200. Boom. I just know I made $80. That's how you should start to think. Now, the new question after that becomes, I know how to price devices. I understand the basics of the business. The next question you should ask is, well, how do I get devices for less than value? This is where I'd like most people to be at when they join the group. Unfortunately, that whole little tidbit over the last few minutes or so, people get hung up on. And that's like the biggest barrier a lot of people have. And of course, I forget because it's been years since I started. So I look back and egotistically will think sometimes like, how do people not understand this? But I do get it because I was there. I started once. You start with zero knowledge, zero information. And so that can be really tricky. And especially when you have low capital, you don't want to take any risk and then lose money. So of course, you're trying to ask a bunch of questions, figure everything out. I'll say this, it's always better to just get in there, buy something, even if you lose $100, but to speed up the process of figuring out how to flip phones, well worth it, in my opinion. That's a $100 lesson that It's a lesson we've all learned if you've been in the game long enough. I still lose money on device from time to time, and it's just, you got to look at it as a learning experience. So don't sit on the sidelines too long. Just get in there and buy. But you should know, if you're about to get in there and buy, what to buy for, so you know you'll make money on it. That out of the way, that leads to the most natural question, which is, how do I get devices for less than value? So I know what they go for. I understand I need to buy them to resell them, but how do I actually get devices? Well, we'll talk about that next. But before we get there, I just want to harp on the do not ever guess point. I put this in red and bold and caps because it's extremely important. Don't just guess. So many people in the group have messaged me and been like, hey, I bought this 13 Pro Max for $500, have it up on eBay for $650 and Marketplace for $600, and it's just not selling. I'm like, yeah, well, those, only are selling on eBay for like $400. And so it's just a guess. People, I think, see some of my videos sometimes, see me going out and flipping things and think, oh, okay, well, I can just buy it for this and turn it around for that. It's that easy. It is that easy, but you still have to know what it goes for, because everything has a value tied to it. And luckily with marketplaces like eBay, you're able to see exactly what that value is very accurately, really across any market. eBay is a good standing for that. So don't ever just blindly buy something, because chances are you're going to lose money on it. You're not going to get lucky in this business. I would say it's like a 99% chance you lose money if you're just out there guessing. So don't do that. There's no reason to do that. You now know how to appraise items. Don't guess. So if you're guessing still after seeing all that, you need to start this video from the beginning and try again, because you missed a key point that I just discussed. Hopefully you didn't, but that's very important. This is like the most important premise of the entire business. If you can get this down, everything's pretty straightforward from here on out, and it's just going to be getting in there, getting experience, figuring things out, and you'll slowly just start to shoot up, making more money month over month. It's really just that simple. Again, if you somehow screwed up, just go back and watch that. But that's that. We're now going to talk about where to find these phones to flip. So you know how the business works. Now let's figure out where we can find the phones to flip. There are many places we can source phones and devices from. As you scale up, you'll of course want to get as many leads as possible. So you want to get devices from any place you really can, as long as it's worth the time and input to get that set output. But as a beginner, I think there's a clear-cut best way to start, and one that's very viable and been viable for years, is just your local Facebook Marketplace and OfferUp listings. It's where you will make your first $1,000 the easiest. The reason for that is because running ads costs money. Setting up some more advanced advertising just takes time and experience. Facebook Marketplace and OfferUp you've probably used before. If not, you probably understand how it works. And if not, you can figure it out very quickly. So these local marketplaces are great, super easy to learn. Like I said, far and away the most beginner friendly, and no capital needed to really set any of that up. You just go in. Of course, you have to have capital to buy the device, but you're not running ads, any other paid software, things like that. You don't need it. You can just go in there and earn right away. So that's what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to demo both of these. So first things first, let's demo Facebook Marketplace. So this is my Marketplace homepage. Of course, there's the search. There's some more advanced Facebook Marketplace tactics. You don't need to know any of those for now. The first thing you're going to want to need to do is know how to search. So I buy a whole bunch of devices, so I have all these recent searches, and you would probably want to do this from your phone, by the way. But I like to we'll just do iPhones to start, because just start with iPhones. It's the easiest way. There's the most of them that will be listed. They're the most popular phone, most popular electronic. There will be more listings of these than probably any other electronic on your marketplace. So it's a really great place to start. Chances are you have an iPhone, or at least a smartphone, so you kind of know how these work. Makes it easier to check to make sure there's no issues or anything like that. So what you see here is all these listings on Marketplace. And throughout the day, there will be more listings that get added on Marketplace. And so all you have to do is just search, and then you can find listings like this and then send a message. So I could say, hey, is this still available? Very interested, we'll pay cash today. Once I click send, I won't, because I already messaged this girl and she relisted it. Didn't like my offer, so I won't even waste my time. I send messages to every listing that comes out in terms of things I'm looking for. So new iPhones, I'm sending a message to every listing right when it comes out. I check Marketplace constantly. I even have a little software that tracks it for me. So I do all of that to this day. You should absolutely be doing the same. So what you do is just come to Marketplace, send messages, and then from there you can negotiate, of course. But now that you know what it goes for, you're going to want to try and talk them down on price. I'm going to get more into the details on some of that in a second, but all that's pretty standard from there. You would just make an offer. If they say yes, you arrange details to meet up. If no, you move on to the next one. This is a numbers game. It is a rinse and repeat business. You don't worry about no's. You don't lose your cool. Don't lose your temper. If someone doesn't like your price, they don't have to sell it to you. It's their item. So just move on to the next one. I had a girl in my local Facebook marketplace selling a phone. I actually posted this to the school group because I thought it was funny. She was selling an iPhone 15 Pro for $600, which is way overpriced, but I was going to try and talk her down. I sent her my standard, hey, is this available? I'll pay cash today message. And she said, no, you're a reseller. You can't have it. So I started like messing with her a little bit. I said, well, I can't even have it for 600. And she said, no, not even 601. Have a good day. So sometimes it just doesn't matter. I guess somehow she knew I was a reseller. Maybe I had said some things on her previous listings, or she just checked out my Marketplace profile, saw my history of selling phones on Marketplace and came to that conclusion that way. Regardless, there's always going to be people that are just ridiculous. So she had it listed for a price that was way overpriced that she wanted. And I was like, just seeing if she would even sell it to me, and she won it. So that's her prerogative. She won't sell it for 600. Now she's probably, thinking she screwed up, not just selling it to me, but she's too stubborn to reach back out, I'm sure. So that's her prerogative. Again, there's always going to be people like that. There's weirdos on here. Just deal with enough people. You're going to see all sides of the coin in terms of people who are really cool to work with and people who suck. More often than not, they will probably suck. And that's just something you'll deal with and learn as you get more experience. But all in all, still plenty of great deals to be found on Marketplace. And that's kind of the key point. There are good deals to be found. You're not looking to make friends. You're looking to make money. And if you send enough messages, it's a numbers game. You will win. All you have to do is just search up what you're looking for, start rattling off messages, and do that many times throughout the day. As new listings come up, the quicker you are, the quicker you can give someone cash, the better chance you have of securing a good deal. That's pretty much the basics there with Facebook. OfferUp functions very similarly. They actually have categories tabs. So instead of just searching keyword, I just like to go to electronics and media because it actually sorts it from newest listings at the top to oldest at the bottom. What I could do here is just go through here. Now I flip a bunch of electronics personally. As a total beginner, I would recommend just starting with one thing. So I see this iPhone 17 Air here. It is a Google stock image that was posted, but I imagine it's still a perfectly fine phone, which is what some people do. And I'll just send an offer. Hey, is this available? So we'll see if she gets back to me. But that looks like it could be a good flip, the new 17 Air potentially. And then I would just scroll through here. I would do the same thing with this one. I'll probably ask her about this one when she reaches back out, maybe buy two. But there's a whole bunch of ones. An iPhone 13 here. Of course, iPhone 13 is not going for $350 at this time. So I would eventually end up making an offer for less than whatever they do go for. It's around $200 currently. Again, you would figure that out though, not from me telling you, from looking it up on eBay and figuring out yourself. So that's that. That's just how you use the platforms. I'm not going to get too deep into the specifics. I've got a whole bunch of videos on that on my channel. You can figure out all of that. But yeah, that's that. So that's where to find phones to flip. And now we'll talk about what to do. So the how, the where. Now let's talk about what to do. First thing first, you do have to acquire capital. This is a capital intensive business. The more money you have, the more money you will make. My first three flips though, I turned $60 into 90, $100 into 175, and then 70 into 150. And I actually have screenshots of all of these. It's also important when you start off, just take a photo of your wins because it's going to be great to look back on as time goes on. That's exactly what I did here. And I mean, it's just so simple. I bought a phone. I did nothing to it, no repairs, and listed it back for more. And someone bought it within a couple days, day or two. And I made money for it. So of course I was like, wow, this is amazing. If I could just do more of this, this would be a really great gig and maybe even something I do full time. And that's how I got to the point I'm at now. But it starts with just these basic dominoes of getting in there, getting your first one, My very first one, like I said, was $60 to $90. So I made $30. It was on an iPhone 6S. Reached out on OfferUp. She had it listed for like 60, so I might not have even had to negotiate. It was already at a good price. I was like, I think I could get a little bit more for this. And then I did. And at the beginning, I didn't even know eBay appraising or anything like that. So I kind of got lucky, but I also had someone who I was texting. If I knew how to appraise on eBay back then, I would have made way more money, without a doubt. But I didn't know how. I didn't have a ton of starting capital, but I went in there, learned as I went. There's been plenty of losses along the way as well, but overall more wins than losses, and a lot more of them. So ends up being a very profitable business. But I wanted to include this just to kind of show you that I started from a place of basically zero as well. And if you don't have a ton of capital, it's fine. Like I said, my first flip, it only took me $60 to start. Met someone 2 minutes down the road. No reason you can't do the same. I see a bunch of older phones listed, cheaper ones. You can make money the exact same way. There's plenty of deals on Marketplace. Just need to send a bunch of messages. Eventually you'll get your first one. Like I said, you only need around $100 to start this business. There's a million ways to make $100. If you don't have $100, just sell some of your old stuff, maybe work a job, beg on the street. All you need is $100, and not even that. Like I said, my first flip was 60 to 90. So just find a way. If you want to win, you will. If $100 is the reason you're unable to succeed in this business, then you got a lot more problems than trying to flip phones for money. So shouldn't be an issue. I mean, yes, it requires capital. What business doesn't require capital to start in some capacity? It's almost none. I mean, this is about as low of a barrier to entry as you're going to get. And a lot of people think you need a lot of money to start. You really don't. To do this at scale, it doesn't even take that much money. Over time, you'll just naturally build your bankroll, reinvest, and figure it out from there. Remember, I started with very little. You can do the same. Anyone can get access to $60, find a cheap flip. And then, continue with what to do. Make offers for phones within your budget on Marketplace and OfferUp. It's about as straightforward, bare bones as I can make it. And then offer $50 to $100 less than what it goes for. And then here's the kicker. Do this 50 to 100 times a day and expect to get rejected on almost all of your offers, because you will. It's a numbers game. If you send enough messages, you're going to close a certain amount of deals. I would say for me, it's anywhere from 1 in 10 to 1 in 15, but I also am a little bit more selective just based on pattern recognition at this point. For a total beginner, you should be sending messages to every single one. I don't care if it's listed $1,000 over what it's going for on eBay or $100 less. Of course, you would reach out on that one. Just go in there, get it. If it's already listed for $50 to $100 less than what it was on eBay, just try and buy it straight up. Don't even negotiate, because you're going to end up trying to do that while someone else comes in and buys the cheap phone. So don't screw yourself. If it's right at market value though, or overpriced, just ask them if they would take. Say if it's going for 300, that or 280, that 12 Pro Max, I would say, hey, would you take 200? They're like, I couldn't do that. 230. They say yes, go buy it, sell it for 280, make $50. Now you have more capital to work with to buy more phones. And so the cycle continues. Worst they can say is no mentality. Don't be all up in your feels or scared about reaching out to people and they say no. They can say a lot worse than no, and I've seen it all. People will block you, they'll leave the chat, they'll laugh in your face, they'll cuss you out, call you all sorts of names. I'm just completely numb to that. I don't really care. I understand the game. It's a numbers game. If I send enough messages, I'm going to make money. You can call me whatever you want, bro. I'll just get someone else's device and you can keep trying to sell that for $300 more than it costs on Facebook. That's kind of how I view that. Plenty of toxic people on Marketplace. People think their item is worth way more than it is. And I could sit there and argue with them and be like, bro, it's only going for 280 on eBay and you're trying to get 500. Or I could just move on to the next one and not waste my time with that. So just keep that mentality. Just rattle off Facebook messages. Just start pissing people off, annoying people. Who cares? You're going to end up finding people that are cool to work with, like your offer. Then it's yours. You sell it for more. Done deal. Continuing, eventually, if you just do this, not a hard concept, you will get your first phone for under market value. And then from there, we will arrange a local meetup with the seller. So once they agree to your price, just meet up somewhere public, arrange a time and a place. Tell them what car you'll be in. Just communicate well, like a normal human would, so that it's seamless and easy as possible. Don't come off as dangerous or a thug or violent. Of course, just come off as like a normal person. Meet somewhere safe with cameras up front. Once you meet up, you will check the phone. So there's a whole bunch of things to do to inspect the device. Truthfully, it's just pretty simple. 99, I would say, out of 100 times. I'll say this. If you're selling on Marketplace, then yes, 99 out of 100 times, as long as there's no cracks or visible damage, no water in the camera, something obvious, and like the device charges and everything, there's going to be no issues with it. And especially if the IMEI is clean, device is as advertised. That being said, I know there's going to be some people who just trip about this, and I understand it because you can't afford to lose money when you start. So I've put together an entire checklist of things to check on the device. You can get a copy of this for free if you go to phoneflippers.com/iPhone-check. And we'll just go through this very briefly. So when you meet up with someone, of course, exterior condition, you want to check for cracks, dents, scratches on the screen and body. There can sometimes even be small cracks you can only see at an angle or in the corners, so be very careful with that. You want to inspect the camera lenses for scratches or cracks. If the camera lens on the back is cracked or scratched up, you'll want to check the camera quality to make sure it's not damaged. And even then, that would be something that would devalue it. So be very careful buying something like that. And then ensure the buttons. If you're probably not buying a phone with the home button at this point, but make sure the power, volume, intact and functional. Of course, I've never seen a phone where these aren't working, but check it out. It's your first flip. Now, I have seen phones where these aren't working, but usually they're completely busted, cracked front and back for it to be completely working. But the one thing is the volume or the power button. That's very unlikely. Screen, of course, make sure it's not unresponsive or glitching out really weird. Sometimes devices will get a heating issue. That could be the case. Test the Face ID. It'll even say in settings now if the Face ID isn't working, but that's a big one. So you're going to want to make sure the Face ID is working. Speakers, you can play the audio. If you just go to the settings, sound and haptics, you can just slide that little slider and you'll hear the speakers. So just listen if they sound good. Cameras, this is probably one of the more important ones. Just test the front and rear camera. So open up the camera app, just flip it around real quick. Make sure it doesn't look weird or that the 0.5 or zoom don't look weird either. Battery health, truthfully, the way I'm going to teach you guys how to sell, which is just back on Marketplace, battery health doesn't matter a whole lot. Almost get zero complaints. Back in the day when I would sell on Marketplace, if I sold something for under 80% where it had the battery message in the settings, pretty much never affected my price. I almost never even mentioned it, and I almost never had anyone come back to me and complain about it. So that's that. Maybe it's something you try and talk them down in person if that's the case and show it to them, but I wouldn't really stress it all that much, to be honest. Charging port, if it looks super dirty, I would definitely try throwing a charger in there just to make sure it's functional and it goes in all the way and it's working. You can actually usually fix this pretty easily by just cleaning the dirt out, but for your first couple flips, you're not going to want to deal with that. So just be super cautious regarding that. The biggest one, iCloud lock, especially if you're a newbie to flipping. Just go to the settings, make sure there's no iCloud profile up here. So where it says sign into your iPhone, just make sure they sign out of their account, log out. There's a million tutorials on YouTube to figure that out. You probably already know if you own an iPhone. If not, you could figure it out very easily. So I'm not going to do a tutorial on every last little thing in this, but it's something you want to keep an eye out for, something you want to make sure is removed. Just make sure the device is completely factory reset when you buy it. No passwords, no Face ID. Nothing that would prohibit you from being able to sell it. So that's going to be very important that there's no iCloud account on the phone. Next, MDM lock, sometimes in settings. This is something you'd run into 1 out of 100 or 200 times, but it happens. It'll say the phone is supervised. Sometimes it's a work phone. It's a school phone, college, university, whatever it may be. It's managed by the company, by the school, and it'll usually say something in settings near the top if that's the case. Pretty rare you would run into this on your first flip. Would be super unlucky if you did, but something to keep an eye out for. If you're going to be super cautious, you might as well go through everything. And then parts and service history, again, for beginners, not relevant. Once you start selling on eBay to direct buyers, this does become relevant. But refurbished devices, you're selling back on Marketplace, no one's going to be bothered by that. Unless the screen looks really terrible, it's peeling off, then you have a whole different issue, of course. And then IMEI checks. So You will want to run the IMEI. Just make sure it's not blacklisted. I use sickw.com. There's a number of websites you can use, but do that. You want to make sure that if it's an unlocked phone, it is truly unlocked. If it's T-Mobile, make sure it says T-Mobile or whatever. You may even get lucky. Sometimes someone thinks it's a T-Mobile lock or Verizon or something and it's unlocked. So that's cool. A cool bonus if you run into that. But just make sure the device is ad advertised. And you can do that easily by running the IMEI. I have tutorials on my channel on checking the IMEI. There's plenty online. The biggest thing is you want to make sure that no iCloud, no carrier lock, and it's not a blacklisted device. Running the IMEI will let you know if it's blacklisted or not. If it's blacklisted, it won't work with a SIM card. So it's essentially just like an iPod or a Wi-Fi device at that point. So you're not going to be making calls on it. It's just a Wi-Fi only device, which of course is going to be significantly less valuable when you're selling it back to marketplace. You absolutely don't want to run into anything like that. So just do yourself a solid on your first couple flips. Check this out. Eventually you can boil this down to a much easier process. For me at this point, I kind of just, if it's in good condition, I just run the IMEI. Of course, I check the exterior, make sure there's no cracks or anything. Usually I know beforehand if there is cracks. It's pretty rare that that would go unnoticed because there's photos up on Facebook or someone reaches out to me through an ad, fills out a form, says that's the case. So I usually know what I'm buying. Of course, if it's different, then I would adjust my quote in person. And at this point, some of that's a bit more advanced, but I just check the IMEI, make sure it's not blacklisted, make sure it's as advertised, because the IMEI check will also pull up iCloud status. It'll pull up carrier lock, and those are the big three. I know, too, I can spot like interchange screens. So the list of things I can get burned on at that point is very small and very rare at that. So I could probably save myself here and there by going through those checks a bit more smoothly and taking an extra few minutes. But you get to a point where you kind of just know which ones are going to be good, which ones aren't. But as a beginner, you should definitely, of course, be cautious, as I've mentioned before, and do your due diligence. Just check the phone in its entirety. That way you also know for the future what to look for when you see something that's a little bit off. Again, if you want to go through all of that, you can just get the copy at phoneflippers.com/iPhone-check. You can even pull it up as you're actually going through the phone in person. That way you're extra careful. You don't screw anything up. So that's all things you can have to your ability. The IMEI checking guide is also linked to that. So if you want to go through that before you end up buying a device, that's going to be a huge resource for you as well. Completely free. Make sure to do that if you're a complete beginner. If you've flipped a couple phones before but never hit your first 1,000 or whatever, that's something that'll still help you as well, but you're probably a bit more familiar with it at this point. Now, we've gone through all that. We checked it. Device was as advertised. What you will do is just list it back to Facebook Marketplace. This is the easiest way as a beginner. The reason for that is you start selling to direct buyers or eBay. With a new eBay account, you're going to have to wait forever to get your funds in. It'll be like a week or 2 weeks after the item's been shipped, especially if you're selling more expensive items like iPhones on eBay. They're going to hold your funds for a while as a new seller. eBay also has a pretty steep learning curve as a newbie. Just starting off, there's going to be a whole bunch of things that could go wrong. I have a full guide on that, but if you're under the $1,000 career earnings for flipping, I would just sell it back to Marketplace and just try and do one thing at a time. Slowly step up the staircase. Don't try and do everything all at once. Just slowly learn the game before you try and do anything too advanced. Make that first $1,000. We'll list it back to Marketplace. Again, selling to direct buyers, you'll ship it out there, they'll inspect it, then they'll send you the ACH transfer. That'll take another 3 to 5 business days to process sometimes. So could be like 10, 15 days before you see your money. eBay could be even longer if you're new to eBay. So sell it back to Marketplace, get cash back in your hand, and then go disperse that cash to buy more. That's kind of the thought process for this, especially because you'll probably be low capital when you're starting this business, which is fine. That's where most people start. But you want to play to that disadvantage and figure it out later when it's not a problem anymore, how you can just move more items as opposed to trying to just build your bankroll as a beginner. Now, you want to just list it better than it was listed. We just went through Facebook Marketplace. None of those listings looked particularly amazing. Even the eBay ones, so-so. And you don't have to have some sort of, I can't even think of who a famous photographer is, but it doesn't have to be some sort of cinematic shot or perfectly crafted listing. It just needs to be slightly better than it was listed. which most times is going to be really easy to do. And I'll show you how to do that because I also have a listing guide that I've created for you. phoneflippers.com/marketplace-sales. You'll be able to pull this up and follow it bit by bit. I'm going to go over it just for a few minutes here because I think it's going to be really helpful. At this point, we've gone everything up to the point of actually selling it for more money. The good news is you already know what it goes for. So now we just have to list it back to Facebook Marketplace. First things first, you will open up the Facebook app. Of course, you go to Marketplace. You would go to Sell in the top left corner, Create Listing. And by the way, Facebook Marketplace, they may change their UI, user interface, that is, from time to time. And so these could be in different locations. Again, it's something you can ask ChatGPT, watch a YouTube video. When I created this guide, this is how it was. Next, you'll go to list one item when it says create new listing, and then it'll just pop up this. Should have no issue getting to a page that looks like this where you're crafting your listing. Here's how I recommend you list your items. This is what's worked really well for me. Help me to move stock pretty quickly, look somewhat professional, and have people feel good about buying my devices, hence making them move quicker, allowing me to get more cash back faster and reinvest it into buying more phones to flip, basically making more money. So if it's damaged in any way, you do want to have a photo clearly showing that. Starting off, you probably won't be buying too much damaged stuff. Again, no need for a world-class camera. Phone camera works great. Most listings on Facebook have really poor quality photos. It's like people in a mirror sometimes. People, with their hand all in the photo. Don't do that. Just put in like 30 seconds of effort, and that's literally all it will take to stand out. Try and use some good lighting and a solid background. I think kitchen countertop is good, hardwood floor, even carpet or table. Just a little bit of decent lighting so it doesn't look super dark, about like how mine look here. And I would just take 3 to 4 photos of it, showing all the angles and the accessories it may comes with. So if it has a box or a case, and typically I don't even sell with cases, I just throw them away. But maybe you wanted to as a nice case or something, like an OtterBox, especially if you're going back on Marketplace, sometimes that'll help it sell quicker. You can arrange them nicely for the first photo. So I had a box for this phone that I sold, and I had the phone in the box. Just took a nice clean photo showing, hey, this is everything it comes with. And then I took some more close-ups of the phone itself. I like to do just a standard front screen. I also strategically pull up the settings page to show that there's no iCloud connected. People feel better about that. And then, of course, to show it turns on, works, things like that. All those little things go into the minds of buyers. Show a photo of the back. So at this point, you've seen everything. And then I throw in a little like side angle too, with the camera pointed towards the camera of the phone I'm taking this on. That way they can see the camera lenses up close, even get a couple glances at the edges to see if they're all banged up or anything, which in this case they were not. And then titling your listing. So you've got the photos up. Format, I like to just do item, storage, and carrier. Those are the big 3. Point is to be clear and concise in a few words. So this was an iPhone 11, 64 gigabyte, carrier unlocked. So I just said exactly that in the title. Don't have to do anything crazy. Some people put really weird titles. Just say what the item is, say the needed info, and leave it at that. Description, I do this template. I do a whole thing on trade-ins. If you're a complete beginner, honestly, just restate the title and just mention it works really well. Or if it doesn't, mention why it doesn't. But the format for my description essentially is restate title. I list any issues or damages. I say that it's iCloud unlocked, and then I throw in the trade-in message. The point of the description is to list anything that will not fit the title and look professional. And I'm going to go over all of that, but I'm going to leave out the trade-ins part. I have a whole video on that I just posted. If you want that, it's a bit more advanced, but it might be helpful. It's nothing too crazy. I'm sure you could figure it out. You're welcome to go watch that, but that's not the point of this video. So I'm going to skip that for now. But here's how I do my description. It's this right here. iPhone. So in this case, I would say iPhone 11, 64 gigabyte in bullets, then unlocked for any carrier. If it was locked to a carrier, I would say locked to T-Mobile, locked to AT&T, whatever it was. And then this bold message is just a placeholder. If it had any issues like battery health below 80%, cracked screen, no Face ID, could list it there. Even if the battery health was low, honestly, you don't even have to say it. It would be good business to do so. For the longest time, I didn't, and I got almost no complaints on Facebook. So keep that in mind. Continue with the description. I say phone is iCloud unlocked and ready to be used with your carrier. It has been completely reset to factory settings. And then I have this trade-in message. So you could put this in, not put this in, but understand how this works if you're going to do it. This is a good message to put. I say it's iCloud locked, ready to be used with your carrier. It's been completely reset to factory settings. People just, they appreciate that on Facebook. I think it helps ease a lot of nerves when they're buying something. Most people don't particularly know too well even how iPhones work. So just giving them that extra assurance is always good. And again, this is like a complete template. So if you want to just copy this, you would remove this placeholder, of course, in bold, because it's just an instructional text. And then you could just save it to your notes app, put a little keyboard shortcut in your phone, whatever you want to do. That's something you would have the option of doing. That way, every time you go to list, you can just copy and paste it. Again, a lot of this is on trade-ins here, but this is what your listing would end up looking like. So be device name. Yes, it's unlocked. Facebook prompts you to go through some of that when you're listing an iPhone. And then this is what the description would look like. And then photos are clean. So this looks like a pretty professional listing altogether, or at least one that looks solid, not scammy, that sort of thing, which is what you want to come across as. Of course, avoiding scams, building reputation. This is all important. There's a whole lot of information on these. You can go to this document and learn more about that. The main premise is just getting the listing up, and then you're going to start responding to people who are going to be messaging you about the listing. I've broken this down before in my free course on the channel. You're welcome to just go read it for yourself. Of course, at the linked attachment here, you can go find it for yourself. That's the key premise. So for this video, I wanted to go over, and that's going to be you listing it. So again, also very important with that listing is to list it for the price you got from the eBay sold prices. So you should already know what it was. If it was the 12 Pro Max, say you bought it for $200, you're going to list it for $280 just to be safe. Maybe even $300 to start, and then negotiate, because people are always wanting to negotiate on Facebook. So if you wanted to bump it up just slightly, $20-$30, and then someone ends up offering you $280 from the $299, by all means, that's fine as well. Just don't be listing for ridiculous prices. Or if you do, just be willing to take those offers, but understand if it's super highly overpriced, you're just going to get less offers to work with to begin with. So I like to price things to sell. That way people can message you and negotiate. You can say, sorry, firm on price. Eventually you'll find someone who will take it for the listed price because it's listed accordingly to what it would go for, if not slightly under. That way you move it quickly, still make a profit, and can get back in the game and buy another one. Now, people will start messaging you on Messenger. If you've never sold things on Facebook Marketplace, get ready to go through some headache, because a lot of these people will give you the runaround. They'll tell you they want to meet up, and then they don't, or they can't. Again, it's part of the process, but make sure you do respond to these people in a timely fashion. Speed is everything. So if someone's reaching out to you asking if it's available, say yes right away. As soon as you see it, at least. I'm not saying you have to be on your phone all day, but when you see the message, respond, and then just be communicative. I can't give you the exact script for how everything's going to go, because there's so many different ways it could go. But if someone offers you a price that you like, say yes. And then just like when you first met up to buy it, you will meet up with someone on the back end. They'll come. This time they'll be bringing you the cash, and then you can reinvest that cash into more devices. Like I said, it will still sell for the listed price if you did the appraising correctly. So once that happens, meet up just as you did before. This time you're collecting the cash though. And then important next steps for what to do is to reinvest the capital. So don't go and blow your earnings. You just sold it. You bought for $200, sold for $280. Might be tempted to go buy something cool like a pair of shoes or something. Terrible idea. Terrible idea. Reinvest the capital. To this day, I like to just stack up my capital because it gives me way more flexibility to buy things. In case an emergency happens, I'd like to have emergency fund, but also a significant fund for my business. And I like to be very safe above that because I move a lot of money. Sometimes I'll spend at this point $5,000 on electronics in one day. That's not uncommon at this point. So I like to have and need to have a bunch of capital that I have access to. Otherwise, you're never going to be able to scale up and buy more things, because you can actually make a lot more money the more expensive the device is. I've gone into details on that. I made a video on that, and just to break that down very quickly, if there's a device that goes for $100, the most you can make on it is $100, and that would be getting it for free, which isn't going to happen. Whereas if a device goes for $1,000, well, there's just so much more margin for you to profit really quickly. Not quickly, but well and significantly. And so understand that. It's just like a basic concept there. So the more money you have, the more expensive devices you can buy, and you give yourself the potential for way higher profit margins. Now, ultimately, if you're going to try and do this full time, you would want a 10 to 20K bankroll just to scale up this process. Guys, there's people in Hong Kong, United States, all parts of the world that move, $500,000, $1 million plus of product a day. So the used phones market is huge. It scales up to infinity, all the way up to Apple, who has a cut in it because they do a trade-in program of their own. Carriers do the same thing. So people are buying used devices at scale, ridiculous amounts of money, Fortune 500 companies. A lot of people do it. So I would say 10 to 20K just for like a local market maximization is what you ultimately want to get to if you're serious about pursuing this business. If it's always going to be a little side hustle for you, then of course you probably don't need that much capital, and you'll figure out for you what works for you. But again, you're going to want more than a couple $100 because that's like one phone, and a lower end phone at that at once. So start stacking it, reinvesting it. That's how you're going to make strides in this. And process is just 10 times easier with capital, as aforementioned. So hopefully that makes sense. Just don't go blow it. Get yourself up to at least a few grand to work with, and then slowly build on top of that as well. You should never not be able to buy a phone because you blew all the money. So if a good deal pops up, you want to just be able to buy it. Even if you don't, you just want to have the option to. Give yourself that freedom, that flexibility. Now, once you've got all that done, just rinse and repeat at this point. So when I went from 60 to 90, got that little high, even though it was only $30, still felt incredible. I was in high school, so back then that went a long way. And then I immediately went and bought one for 100, sold for 175, cycle continued, just kept doing that. And it's very repeatable. It gets easier as you do it, now that you understand it, and you will continue to make more and more realizations, have a more comprehensive understanding of how things work, so on and so forth. It'll just get easier as you go. Keep reinvesting the money, buying more phones, expand your repertoire. It's going to keep rolling in. The money will keep rolling in for you. Now we'll talk about when to do it. So I check Facebook Marketplace and OfferUp every 20 to 30 minutes. Like I said, I have a tracking software now that does it for me. Starting off there, you're not going to want to pay for that. Just check on your phone every 20, 30 minutes for new listings. If you save the search iPhone in Facebook Marketplace and you just leave it there and don't press the X to cancel it out, every time you load back up Marketplace, if there's a new listing, it'll have a blue dot and it'll say +1 listings since you last searched, or +3, +5, +10. It just depends how many. And then you can go and just hit that. That way you kind of know if there's new listings or not. But I would still manually check every 20 to 30 minutes, just see if there's something new. The quicker you can respond to new listings, the better chance you have of closing more deals. Goes without saying, but that's something that's really helped me throughout the years. Then you want to list items as soon as you get them. So again, speed is everything. It's kind of the concept of this whole part here. But as soon as you get an item, you should just list it. Don't sit on it. There's no point. It's not going to make you money. It's only going to depreciate. Things aren't going up in value anytime soon. They're actually never going up in value. So maybe if you have like a iPhone 1 sealed in box, but you're not going to have that. So list it as soon as you get it out, let someone buy it. So that way you can reinvest the capital right away. Again, once you sell it, you should reinvest it right away. So start checking Marketplace, OfferUp, all that, get another deal, and then respond to messages right away. If people are asking to buy it, don't make them wait. Don't give them an opportunity to go to someone else, buy their phone. Respond to them right away. A lot of people who are looking for phones on Marketplace need it quickly, need it today. Respond to them. You're going to have your best odds of closing deals quickly on the back end. And to wrap this all up, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a bonus. We're going to talk about some other keys for success. So went over all that. A couple more keys for you guys. One, it's a numbers game. As I've said, set low expectations. So to start off, I would just assume 1 out of every 30 or so, I'm going to close a deal. Maybe even less than that, just to be conservative. But that's what I would go in with the mindset of. I'll close 1 out of 30, maybe even 1 out of 50, but I'm going to send these messages till I get one. And I'm going to keep doing that till I get more and more and more. Once you get to a point where you feel like you're tapped out, you've expanded all there is to do, we can talk about some strategies there. Second, don't complain. If you're going to complain, you shouldn't even start, in my opinion. Same thing with quitting. If you're going to quit, just don't even start. There's just no point. You're not going to make it anyways. You're not going to have success. You're going to blame someone else for why it's not going how you want. You might as well not even start. Just save yourself the headache. save me the comments in the comment section or whatever it may be. Just don't even start. There's no point. If you're going to whine about it, if you're going to just give up after sending 40 messages and you didn't get one, I have zero sympathy for you. I don't know how you could have ever expected to succeed. Seriously, this is one of the lowest barrier to entry businesses in terms of skill and capital. And so if you somehow go into this and screw up, well, first of all, everyone screws up. But if you go in, don't see success immediately and then quit or complain about it, yeah, you're just never going to make it in anything, much less this. I mean, it doesn't get much easier or simpler than this. I'm not even saying it's easy, but it's going to take, it's going to take time. It's going to take effort. But relatively speaking to a lot of other things you could do, this is pretty straightforward. So don't do either of those, and then learn from your mistakes. Mistakes happen. I still make mistakes, but you just got to view them as learning opportunities. Come back stronger, come back better. If you bought a fake phone, if you bought a blacklisted phone, you just have to bite the bullet. Hopefully don't do it again. And certainly don't try and get someone else back. A lot of people will get burned, list it back on Facebook and try and screw someone else just to recoup their losses. Just take it on the chin and learn from that. Few other keys here. Just doing the method I showed you in this video today, buying and selling back on Marketplace, I had a month where I did $7,500 in profit. Just doing this, and it's not even the best method to scale up at that point. You get around $1,000 to $2,000 a month. There's much better ways to do this, but that's what I got to doing everything I showed you today, and I did it in a town of only 10,000 people population. So I was driving sometimes an hour for a deal one way, coming back. I just, if you want to make it work, you'll make it work. You'll find a way. And that's what's going to separate you. There's so much opportunity. Everyone has a phone. If you want to win, you will find a way to win. I guarantee it. Just don't quit. Don't complain. And you'll end up being successful. And once you get to about $1,000 to $2,000 a month, like I said, there's better ways to scale this up and make a lot more money. This video is entirely for the beginner who's never done it or is not at $1,000 total. So that's why I made this. But when it happens, when you've perfected the steps that I've outlined throughout this video, by all means, go to phoneflippers.com/start. From there, you're going to have a video I put up, area to book a call with me. Once you get to that point, we can talk about some more advanced strategies, get you up to where I'm at now. And you can just fast forward through all the mistakes and hard lessons I had to learn. I'll be happy to teach you. I do offer coaching, mentorship, a whole bunch of other stuff that comes with that, strategies, tracking sheets, direct buyers list, software to run ads and all of that. Of course, that's down the road if you're a complete beginner, but it's something that will really help you scale this business up, because once you start getting those dopamine hits of $50 flip, $100, $150 flip, all you're going to want to do is just figure out how to get more. And that's where I can come and help you in. But for these total beginners, just want to help you guys make your first 1,000, 2,000 or so. Should be pretty repeatable to do this every month. No matter where you are, you should be able to just follow the steps outlined in this video, get to 1,000, 2,000 a month, no sweat. Once you do, definitely check out phoneflippers.com/start, book a call with me. Be happy to scale it up from there, 5x it, 10x it, whatever it may be. With that being said, that's going to wrap up this video. So hope it was helpful. Hope there's at least one person out there that can maybe relate to this video. Maybe it was a little eye-opening if you're struggling with this, trying to just get off the ground. Goal here is just to help at least one person out. So that's going to wrap it up. Let me know in the comments if there's any other videos you guys would like to see. I can make a presentation like this, go out and maybe try and do something. Whatever it may be, let me know. If you made it to the end, you also have an attention span of steel, so congrats. And that's going to wrap it up. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.